So can you tell me a little bit about your hockey journey and how it led you to the Laura Stamm skating program?
Yeah, so I grew up, I was born in California, but moved to Massachusetts when I was about 4. So my parents knew nothing about anything. You know, they were like, we live in New England, you should learn how to skate. So I learned how to skate on unsharpened figure skates, which is how much my parents didn't know. And, you know, it was just one of those things, learn to skate. And then I was like, oh, I want to play hockey. That looks fun. And so I started learning to play hockey. And then, just growing up, being a mite and a squirt, and my parents were like, he needs to, he's fast, but he needs to work on his skating more. So, just at the local rink, Laura Stamm was doing a program. They knew nothing about the program. So they signed me up, and, I took a program, and then it just kind of became almost a yearly thing where, my parents in the summer, they didn't necessarily, want to send me to hockey camp all summer long. One, it's expensive, and two, you need to be a kid too in the summer. So they would let me pick one or two. They would let me pick one hockey camp that I would want to go to, and then I would go to Laura Stamm. So I had a week there. I was working on my skating at a Laura Stamm program, and then a week they let me kind of pick about some of the ones that were around, whether it be a stick handling camp or some kind of battle camp or whatever was hot or fun at the time. I would go to one of those as well. So I just kind of grew up kind of taking Laura Stamm, as a young kid, and then every year just continuing on.
Okay, so now what is power skating? Because as everyone's talking about, like, you have to do power skating, you need to know about power skating, but sometimes you're like, okay, well, what exactly is power skating and how does it help?
Right. Yeah. And power skating, I mean, especially, it gets a little bit of a bad, rap, I would say, just because the old school version of power skating is it's sprints, it's suicides. You're gonna be dog tired. We're gonna make you throw up in a bucket. That's power skating. You just go, which that's not what power skating is. And some people still believe that power skating is just that, it's conditioning. A true power skating school, or someone that says they're going to work on power skating, is you're really working on technique to make players faster, to make them more explosive, quicker, and especially more efficient. Because we're not designed as humans to skate. We're designed to walk and run. So you need to train your body how to work correctly on the ice to be efficient, to create that speed. So power skating is really technique training, where you're training your body and your legs to skate correctly. And anyone that's, out there saying you got to learn it at 100 miles an hour, that's not true either. You can't teach your body anything at full speed. So, power skating, you do slow it down. You teach your body, and then you teach it to be powerful. And then you teach it to be, to do it correctly, powerfully, at speed, and then in a game, so it's a process. It's not something that's immediate, but, something that players should and need to be working on.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So what is the Laura Stamm program like, and what can a participant expect when they sign up?
Yeah. So, our programs, we're a little different than a lot of other hockey programs, where a lot of people are like, you're going to do power skating at our program, you're going to do stick handling, you're going to do skating, we're going to play some games. We're not that. We focus 100% solely on a player skating. So when they come to and take one of our programs, they're not, you shouldn't expect to see a ton of pucks, unfortunately. What we're working on, it's not the most fun part of the game to work on, but it's the most important. The better skater somebody becomes, the better stick handler and shooter they're going to be, because they're stronger on their skates. And the faster they are, the more fun they have. So when they come to one of our programs, we're going to focus solely on their skating. The first day, probably not even, I can almost say with almost 100% certainty, there could always be an outlier, but they're not going to see a puck on the first day, which I know is disheartening for players sometimes. Be like, I don't get to shoot and have a puck. But there's a reason, because there's so much that has to be taught to your body that when you have the puck, it just distracts from that, and it's hard to think about it. So, and then as they go through a program, whether it be a 2-day program, a 3-day program, a 4-day program, we build on it. So it's a building block approach. So we start with, forwards and your crossovers, and everything builds upon itself. We will add the puck in at different points. But we do it once we've gotten to a certain proficiency without the puck. And then to add a challenge, you give them the puck. And they do have to be able to skate with the puck because they need it in a game. So, so when they come to our program, they should expect, they're going to work on their skating the whole time. We will add the puck. Our instructors are very good at, even though we're working on something that's not the most fun, engaging with the players and having fun with the players. So yes, they might not be playing games and shooting, but I would say a vast majority, couldn't put a percentage, love coming to the program. They come back year after year, not only because they learn a lot, but because they did have fun, even though they weren't out there shooting and scrimmaging.
Absolutely. And they're also broken up. So are they broken up into groups so that, they're the beginners are they have more advanced. So are they broken up?
There are different, so we do have some different groups. So, there are some programs where it'll be one group, ages 7 to adult. So you can have a wide age range. In those programs, at different points, we do split up based on ability. Some of the players that, are a little bit more advanced will go down one end. Some players that, are a little bit newer or, not quite as advanced or down the other end for a little while. But then there are some things that we can work on as a big group. And then we have other programs where they're broken up. We have a group A, which would be ages 7 to 11, and then a group B, which is 11 to adult. So they would be completely separate groups. But skating, the one thing where we're able to get away with a little bit wider age range and ability level on the ice is when we're at our programs, it's not battle based. So these players aren't competing one-on-one against each other, where if you had an 8-year-old battling against a 12-year-old, no one's getting anything out of that. That's just a waste of time. It's all individual based learning. So they might all be working on their forward stride going down the ice. And one player may be going faster than the other, but a lot of times they're slowing them down anyway. So it's not a race. They're trying to perfect it at their speed, which that is why we're able to get away with that wider age range, a slightly wider ability, gap as well, and still have every player from more of a beginning player to a really advanced player get a lot out of the program all at the same time.
Okay, good. We have the power skating book written by Laura Stamm.
Yeah.
She talks about how she started teaching power skating at the New York Rangers School in 1971. Ms. Stamm went on to train many top NHL players. The Laura Stamm program is now working with the New Jersey Devils. How does working with NHL and professionals to improve their skating ultimately help the work you do with young hockey players?
I would say the biggest thing is it gives legitimacy. Like some people are like, who do you work with as an NHL player? Which we're not, I didn't become a, instructor and sign on to be like, the only reason I'm doing this, if I can't work with NHL players, I'm not doing this. I don't care if the player is 7 years old, 11, a college player, or an NHL player that we get to be on the ice with. I want to see every player at every age improve. So to me, it doesn't matter. All I want is the player that's going to work hard, whatever age they are. I don't care, but the ability to work with, be on the ice with some of these NHL guys, it helps just because then we can relate, because then when you're teaching a player a simple drill, really simple, seems so simple. And then you ask an 8-year-old, would I ever make an NHL player do that? They're like, no. You're like, if you want, I could show you a video of them doing this exact drill on my phone. So it gives that little bit of legitimacy to those younger players that are like, this isn't what the NHL and the pro guys work on. It's like, this is absolutely what they work on. And we know that because we're able to work with some of these guys on the ice. And I can show you video. And they're like, prove it. I'm like, okay, here you go. And, so anything, I wouldn't say it helps in terms of making us better coaches by any stretch of the imagination, but it helps with that legitimacy, especially with those younger players that might not fully get why they have to work on their skating and they don't get to just go out there and shoot and scrimmage all the
time. Okay. Well, so Laura Stamm is considered one of the original power skating programs in the United States. Today, however, there are many other power skating programs available for young hockey players. What differentiates Laura Stamm from other power skating programs?
I mean, I would say that one of the biggest things that differentiates us is this is all we do. We're not a program that, you'll see some other ones, they work on skating, but they do X, Y, and Z also. They do stick handling, they do shooting, they do this, they do that. And it's not to say that they're not, because we don't like to talk bad about anyone. It's not to say that they're not good skating coaches, but when you're trying to teach everything, you're just kind of grazing over everything. You're not really getting in depth on anything. So if you're on the ice for 2 hours and you're going to do skating, stick handling, shooting, and games, how in depth can you really get on any of that? Never mind just skating, but the stick handling, the shooting as well. So, one of the things that sets us apart is that's all we do. We don't do anything else. We don't have a stick handling camp that you can go to, a shooting camp. This is all we do. So if we don't do it well, then it's going to be tough to stay in business. But what other differentiates us is we've been around a long time, but we've evolved. We're not stuck back in, Laura, started back in 1970, and a stride from 1970, a forward stride, is still a really, really high-end, very good stride today. But there's ways that you can evolve in how you teach it, how you communicate it to players, and also, adjusting what we do and some of the drills we do to what suits the modern game. Because the game in 1970 and 80 is not the game that it is today. The game is much faster, much quicker. The change of directions is just, it's a different speed at which the game is played. So even though we've been around a long time, it's not like we're still teaching the exact same stuff as what we taught in 19 and how we taught it, or how Laura taught it in 1970. We've evolved, but the foundation is still there. It's just, we've evolved in how we teach and how we progress.
Right. Okay, that's awesome. So now, in your opinion, as an athlete and Laura Stamm certified trainer, when is the best time for a player to start your program? I know you go through the ranges from young or to old, but is there like a sweet spot in terms of the time to get them working on skating?
I would say the best time to start is now. But no, we start with the players that we have. They start at 7. And the reason we want to start them at 7 is, one, we understand that we're not doing the most fun part of hockey. So, and we're out on the ice, sometimes the longest we'll be on the ice is 2 hours, but 2 hours for a 7-year-old just focused on skating is a very long time. When they're not playing games and stuff like that. Also, our insurance doesn't cover below 7, but 7 is an age where at that point they can focus for that hour and a half to 2 hours on their skating and get a lot out of it. I do work with, we work with some players that are younger than that in private lessons. I've worked with a 5 or 6-year-old in a private lesson, but that's a much shorter period of time that you're working with that player too. So 7 is a good age, is the youngest that we'll start them at one of our programs. But then when is the best time to start? In my opinion, as young as you can, 7, 8, 9 is a really good place to start, because it's less time developing those bad habits. Some of these NHL guys that we've worked with that have never really worked and focused on solely their skating. They're trying to correct years of possibly bad habits, which a lot of them have bad habits. So if they've been playing since they were 4, and we're now working with them and they're 25, they've done 20 years. How many millions of reps have they done something one way? And now we're saying, we want you to tweak it. And it's not easy to just tweak it. So, an example is a couple of years ago, pre-COVID, one of our other instructors, Angela, and I were on the ice. We had Kyle Palmieri, who was on the ice, and then another player for the Bruins, actually. I won't mention the name, but Kyle Palmieri started taking our program, Laura Stamm, when he was a kid, 7, 8 years old. Took the program for years and years. He actually did private lessons with one of our instructors. But then he didn't do it for a number of years. Didn't specifically come back, once he was into, I forget if he was a college player or not at this point, but when he was in a late teenager, early 20s, early in the league, wasn't really focused on his skating. And then he was like, you know what, I need to get back into this. After he was already an NHL All-Star, he's like, I'm losing some stuff. I need to get it tweaked again. So Angela, one of our other instructors, was working with him. And it came back like that, because he had taken it so many times as a young player, he was able to instantly just kind of fall back into it. And it came back very quick. Whereas this other player from the Bruins came and joined him one time. And after about a minute, Angela and I were like, we got to go get private lessons, because what we're doing what Kyle Palmieri can do and what this other player can do, they're at different levels. Not to say they're not both great players, but this other player hadn't worked on his skating and had a lot of bad habits, but he couldn't just instantly make his body change because he didn't have a base in that. So the younger players can start to develop those good habits. The faster it'll become a good habit, but also if they do develop bad habits as they grow older, they can come back and fix it a lot quicker. So I would say the younger players can get started with that good technique, the better off they're going to be in the long run.
Well, that leads me into my next question. So what are the most common reasons a player should attend a program like Laura Stamm? Like, how do they know they need it?
I think for every player, it might be different. I would say the most common reason a player should come to our program is because they play hockey. Like, if you play hockey, you should be working on your skating. I mean, we all want to go out and work on our stick handling and shooting. One, that's fun, but we know we need those skills. We need that stick handling and shooting skill. The foundation, the essence of hockey is it's played on ice, on skates. So you need to be training that, all the time. Runners are out there working on their running form, and walking and running is natural. We learned that as a 1-year-old, but runners are out there working on their running technique to make themselves more efficient. We're doing the same thing, but we're working on skating, which is not a natural thing for your legs and body to do in a lot of situations. So, the players that really should come is really anyone that's a hockey player that wants to improve as a hockey player and get better. And then there's some players that, they are fast and they've never taken a specific skating program, but their coaches go and be like, you're not fast enough for the next level, or you're really you have some awkward or goofy tendencies in your skating. I don't know how to fix them. So sometimes there are a lot of coaches who'll be like, you need to go work on your skating, because not every coach teaches everything. So just because they're a great coach doesn't mean they teach you and break down the skating the way that you can understand and has a progression. So a lot of times we'll have coaches that specifically send players to be like, go work on your skating. But I think any player that wants to be a better hockey player, wants to improve as a hockey player, should be working on not just their skating skills, but going and working stick handling and shooting. You have to be working on those skills. And skating's a fundamental skill for a player.
And I think also that the fact that you guys offer like the pre-tryout sessions and summer sessions, you're like catching people at the time when they really need to have development. It's great to get in development right before tryouts, because then you're at your peak performance. And then also over the summer, when you have a tendency to lose some, of that edge, then you're getting training during that time too. So I think that when you offer it also is just ideal timing.
I mean, I also think too that and part of the reason we don't offer it during the season, or many programs, we do some holiday ones, but it's hard to get ice, and with player schedules, you can't get them. But during the season, I mean, they're focused on their teams. The off season is really when, that March to August, that's when the skill development should really be happening with players, where they should be improving all their individual skills, their skating, their stick handling, their shooting. But, a lot of times we do try and get, like you said, 2 places right before tryouts, because, let's get your skating back. Because we talk to parents all the time, like they come and they work with you, and last summer they were skating great. And then we just watch their skating during the season go downhill, which is natural. There's always going to be regression in your skating, and coaches don't have time to work on it in the season or don't have the knowledge how to fix it. So you got to come every year. You got to come back. You got to work on it. In the spring, the summer, you get to a new high level. There's going to be some regression. Then you get to another high level. You get to a level, doing things better than you did it before. And it would be nice if everything was just linear, but that's just not how the progression happens.
Absolutely, absolutely. Okay, so the Laura Stamm program is available throughout the United States, Europe, Canada. For those who can't make a camp, what 3 pieces of skating advice would you offer to a player to improve on their own?
I mean, luckily nowadays there's so much information out there. When we were kids, it was a lot harder to come by. You're going and but with
no internet to pull up
no
Google videos that you can see exactly what you should be doing.
Right. There is so much information out there, which is great. But the downside is it's not all accurate. There's a lot of information that we see out there that just, unfortunately, it's just wrong. And, we could explain it. And, some of our instructors will see something on Instagram or YouTube and be like, this is just flat out, it's just not correct. And we could give you the reasons, but we're not sitting here to bash people. So I would say you have a lot of resources out there, but you got to filter through it and figure out what makes sense and why. If someone can't give you the why, this is why you have to do it X, Y, and Z. They're just saying doing it this way because I said so. That's not a great reason. So you have to figure out what makes sense. And we even tell players, don't take what we say as the truth 100%. It's not the Bible that we're teaching. You got to go through and see, does this make sense? And do I feel it working? And I would say almost all the time, but we feel it is. It's going to make you a better skater. So finding good information and what makes sense and why it makes sense. There's so much out there that go and find that information. On our website, we do have like skating skill videos where people can subscribe and get those videos if they can't be at a program, or, it's expensive to go to all these programs so that they can have that information. But then I think that's the number one thing is you got to find the information, what makes sense. I would say the second thing is you got to dedicate time to improving. You have to take that time to work on it. And, it might be once a week or, one week out of the year when you go to a skating school. But if you don't dedicate time, I tell kids all the time, you can't just go to bed at night and just, sit there and be like, please wake up a better skater. Please wake up a better skater. You wake up a better skater. That's not going to happen. You have to go and dedicate that time to making yourself a better skater. And then the last thing is, once you've dedicated that time, you got to continue to reinforce it. So if you made yourself a great skater, you're not done. You just have, because like I said, there's going to be regression. So you need to go back, continue to reinforce what you do really well now over and over. That's the only way it's going to continue to stick. We have players that are like, you make that look so easy. Why does it look so easy for you? Well, I'm on the ice, if not 7 days a week, every week, it's almost 7 days a week. And when we're teaching players and demonstrating, well, that's us working on it. So we're just constantly reinforcing it with our bodies. So it's become second nature, but you have to continue to do that, So I would say those three things, go find great information, use all the resources you can, dedicate time to working on it. And then once you become good at it, continue to reinforce it. You're not done.
No, absolutely. I think that's perfect advice, because I know there's so many kids that are trying to, what do I need to do to get better? What do I need to do to get better? And I think just hearing those pieces of advice, I think that's good. Thank you so much for taking the time with me. I appreciate it. It was great talking to you and learning more about the program. That a couple of things I didn't know, a lot of things I knew, but it's still great to be able to share it with other people.
Yes, I think that's the biggest thing is getting it out there to other people that might not know. So
thank you. I'll see you soon. Yep. Bye.